Please help me welcome her, Miss Edwidge Danticat.
Wanted to get some water. um, Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank all of you for coming. It's a tremendous honor to be here this afternoon on this very special occasion to speak to you. First of all, I'd like to thank the Cultural Center of the Inter-American Development Bank for extending this very gracious invitation to me. What a wonderful series this is. It's not often that banks and writers, banks and artists in general, enter into collaborations such as this. I think this organization deserves a tremendous amount of praise and encouragement along this wonderful path. The world is getting smaller, and it seems our needs are getting greater, something which is all the more accentuated as the holiday season approaches, and this being the final event of the year. It's extremely heartwarming to see an organization that attempts to join the cultural needs of our communities, along with all the other valuable work that it does. So I'm happy and proud to be here and happy to commend your efforts. On a more personal note, I'd like to thank Ann Vina, who has worked along with me through all the stages that led me to this visit. Thank you for your kindness and patience. And finally, I'd like to thank you all again for coming, and a special thanks to my countrymen and women who have come in support. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about Haiti, a bicultural experience, which is the title of this lecture. And even as I prepared to do this, I hear in the back of my mind the many ways that people began talks, conversations, chats, and exchanges, dialogues like this when I was a child in Haiti. Of course, the parties and questions were never even in the numbers that you are, and the events were never as official. But there seems to me, thank you, that there was always a prelude to begin a kind of thing like this, a kind of dialogue like this, a prelude that was mildly ceremonial. My grandmother would say, if she were advising me on this, take a chair and settle in. Always she would kindly offer the reassurance that this won't be too long, and of course, you might just amuse yourself. Well, you already have a chair that you're settled in, and you know that this won't be too long because you know the schedule. So all I can say is you might amuse yourself. Haiti, a bicultural experience. A bicultural experience of memory through the eyes of a curious child. One who, as you can tell, likes ceremonial moments and ceremonial things. One who loved rites and rituals and still now misses them. A curious child who grew up to be a curious woman, in other words, a writer. A bicultural experience through moments that I have observed, events played out in my life, sometimes like theater, before my eyes. A bicultural experience through the eyes of a citizen of many places, of many worlds, past and present. I don't call myself a citizen of the world because I have not seen all of it, but a bicultural experience because I've spent most of my life between two places, Haiti and the United States. Biculturalism in fact, biculturalism in fiction, which in some ways I always feel looks at one place, any place, with two spirits, two minds, anyway. My choosing this topic is very much linked to an encounter I had a couple of months ago. I was doing a reading in a bookstore in Miami, Florida, when a young man came up in a line with his book, and I said, of course, how would you like me to sign this for you? Is there something special you'd like me to write? As a writer, you quickly find out that part of the job of being a writer is going to bookstores. And when you go to bookstores, you read from your book, and then after the reading, people ask you to sign their copies for them. A Haitian young man came up with his book. When you sign people's books, sometimes they already have something in mind that they want you to write, so it never hurts to ask them ahead of time what they want you to say. I think of a very funny scene from a wonderful film as El Postino, the postman, where the mailman who delivers all of Pablo Neruda's letters on a small Italian island asks him to sign a book for him. And Neruda signs a very standard greeting which breaks the postman's heart, who had in mind something more intimate to impress his friends and the ladies. So with this in mind, I ask, well, how would you like me to sign? And the young man says, well, please write from one aha to another. Well, before I proceeded to write this down, I stopped to ask him what he meant. What is a aha? From one aha to another implies that I was one and that he was one. And I wanted to know what I had just become. So he said, well, AHA, spelled A-H-A, is an acronym for African, Haitian, American. That's what I am, that's what you are, he says to me. I'd never heard that particular label applied to either me or any of my friends before. So of course I had tons of questions about this. Is it a playful title? Who started this? Well, he proceeded to tell me that this was a new hip label in the Miami area that was being given to Haitians, especially young and hip Haitians, who had been in America for a while, more than 10 years or so, he said. So it was a label that they had given to themselves, partly to combat all the other negative labels that young Haitians in the Miami area were bombarded with, among them boat people, Frenchies, and so on and so forth. The term AHA, African, Haitian, American, broken down, had the following elements. African, to acknowledge our roots deep in the African continent, and often very much manifested in our daily lives in Haiti. Haitian, because of course most of us were either born in Haiti or were first generation born of Haitian parents. American, because we were from the Americas, living in the other America, the United States of America. And some of us were United States citizens and wanted in some ways to acknowledge that this was also a great influential part of the totality of who we were. The complete label, the grouping of all the words, African, Haitian, American, also forge a bond with African Americans living in the United States, linking us to them the way he once felt that the label Afro-Americans once united Afro-Caribbeans, Africans from Africa, and African Americans under one umbrella of a title in these United States. A way of trying to introduce in some way all the things we felt we were at that moment. So there in a tiny bookstore in Miami, I had discovered a new label, a more hip and more 90s way to call myself. That's always a very interesting thing to have happen in a bookstore. So as I sat there signing other books, I kept thinking about what this young man had just said, and how quickly he had managed to say it all. And I couldn't help but flash back in my mind to the time when I had just moved from Haiti to the United States as a 12-year-old girl in 1981. To catch you up a little bit on my life before 1981, I was born in Haiti in 1969, and in a somewhat typical migration pattern, typical for many people I knew, my father left Haiti when I was 2. When I was 4, he sent for my mother. My brother and I were raised for 8 years by an aunt and uncle who were very kind and wonderful to us. While they were here, our parents had 2 US-born children in the household. So we were really, in our house, 2 Haitian-born children and 2 US-born children, bicultural siblings. In 1981, when I moved to the United States to be reunited with my parents, I came on a Friday night in the middle of March in 1981, not speaking a single word of English. My father enrolled me in junior high school on Monday morning in the middle of March 1981, and I was lucky, a bilingual class. Now the spring of 1981, aside from being the time when Brooklyn, New York, and I discovered one another, was still a time of dictatorship in Haiti. At that time, Jean-Claude Duvalier, aka Baby Doc, he's called here, was president still. There was a large wave of boat people coming ashore in Miami, the first really large wave of the 90s. You would see dead, bloated bodies washing up on Florida beaches, a common image on the 6 o'clock news. This was often followed by some type of report on AIDS, still a new news topic then too. Both items would keep us on the edge of our seats. The boat people, because many of us, myself included, saw the possibility of my own fate being exchanged for those of the men and women who washed up naked and dead on the shores of Miami. My mother has a thing that she says all the time, a theory, she calls it, that all Haitians are related in some way, since the island is so small. So any of those bodies, she would say, any of those faces could have been one of our relatives. So we watched those white sheets that were thrown over the dark faces, and we watched those who survived the journey and walked away. We looked closely at their walk and their height, and we looked for traces of ourselves in them. My parents belonged to a Pentecostal church called Evangelical Crusade of Fishers of Men, which was very much involved with refugee work. So on Sunday afternoons after church, we would go and visit many of the refugees in detention centers at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. We would go to talk and chat and pray and listen to their complaints, and most importantly, get the names of their relatives who they would like us to contact. They all, understandably, had a fear of disappearing without a trace, of being lost to the world, of being forgotten. And every time we would leave, my father would say, "There but by the grace of God." There but by the grace of God was all of us. So the faces on the news in the spring of 1981 seemed like ghosts that had followed me from Haiti to the United States, people who could have been me. So I never understood why the children at school would shout their fate at us as though it were a curse. Boat people, they called us mercilessly all the time. As I said before, the spring of 1981 was also the time that AIDS was hitting the media in a very major way. It was still a new disease, new to the media, it seemed, and there was a lot of speculation as to what the disease's origins were. All they seemed to know, all they seemed to be saying from the 6 o'clock news, always after the image of the refugees, was that there was only certain groups of people who got AIDS, among them homosexuals, hemophiliacs, and Haitians. So the labels we were given in my Brooklyn neighborhood in the spring of 1981 were not very hip or self-imposed. They were like lashes from a whip, a constant reminder of who we were and what the children in school thought we were. None of us at that time considered ourselves anything but Haitian, even though there were many youngsters who denied it any chance they got. The denial even was in some ways an even stronger statement of self-identification. When you doth protest too much, others tend to suspect. In the eyes of our friends, no amount of chic clothes, no new modern hairstyle could hide who we were, could erase any of those stigmas. I'm reminded of a particular day in the spring of 1981. After many taunts and teasings and fights with a group of students who would continue to call us boat people and Frenchies, a group of my fellow students decided to use a stereotype as our defense and protection. We knew that along with the many conceptions or misconceptions the other students had about us, one of them had to do with Haiti and voodoo, what they called voodoo. So the Haitian students all agreed to carry red handkerchiefs and spread rumors that the red handkerchiefs had spells in them. Soon, whenever we were called names or taunted, up would go our handkerchiefs with a mumbling of some kind of abracadabra, and our enemies would flee. Even those of us who on other occasions would deny that they were Haitian had to participate in this wild scheme, reaffirming our solidarity as Haitians. The children who were not Haitian, all they knew of Haiti was that what the news media showed. All they knew was that Haiti was a country that people left in tiny boats and risked their lives across a deadly ocean to come to the United States, to be picked up by the Coast Guard and either be imprisoned or be returned. All they knew about Haiti was what the news said every night in those months in the spring of 1981, that a certain group of people had AIDS, among them homosexuals, hemophiliacs, and Haitians. Flash forward now 14 years, where my time spent in Haiti was at a deficit to the time spent in the United States. And in a bookstore, unexpectedly, someone is giving me this label that was part playful, part revolutionary in the way he presented it to me. and for some reason that made me glad. I was glad about this young man, what this young man was calling me and was calling himself, because as he said, it is self-assigned, and self-assigned labels are often better than the ones other people call us. It is something you call a friend, something a friend can call you. Yes, aha, as a commercial used to say. It feels good to at least have the opportunity to pick what you're being called. Days after this encounter in the bookstore, I would think about over and over about this meeting. Perhaps this aha thing was a North Miami phenomena. Maybe this was something only this particular person and his group called each other. I've never heard anyone say the term since. However, that conversation left me with a deep sense of questioning about how we do label ourselves and who labels us. Is a person bicultural because this is something that people in their situation are said to be, or is it something that they come to terms with themselves? Can Caribbean peoples ever be unicultural in the first place, that the addition of another culture will make them bicultural? I don't pretend to know the answers to these questions, and I don't pretend to offer any definitive solution. For me, these inquiries are part of the ongoing dialogue that I have with myself, part of the continuing explorations I try to force upon myself. A friend once told me the story of a Polish woman she knows. The story is often told to me with the preface, "You think you have it tough." The Polish woman moved from Poland to France when she was a little girl. In France, she picked up enough French to get by, but never really mastered the language. While in France, she never used Polish, so she forgot most of it. So she doesn't either speak French or Polish well. She moves to the United States, where she never learns English really well either. So later, when she had daughters in America, she and her daughters developed a kind of potpourri language and a series of gestures in order to communicate. So there was a woman with no language, really. Is she bicultural, this woman? Is she tricultural? What do we consider this culture? Is it duality or no identity? Is it like the café au lait we drank so much as a child? Coffee and milk mixed together, where you unite and blend two distantly different things together to get a mix that is unlike any of the other two things separately, but that can never be split into these other pre-mixture things again. Is that what it is? Or is it like oil and water, which does not mix at all? Or is it like lemon and milk, where one spoils the other? Does one completely cancel the other out? Duality or no identity? The question is often posed to me, what do you consider yourself? Are you Haitian, Haitian American, Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean, Afro-American? Well, the question makes me think of a book written by 3 Francophone Caribbean writers, Jean Bernardet, Patrick Choimoiseau, Raphaël Confiant. In their book, Éloge de la Créolité, translated as In Praise of Creoleness, they say that as peoples of the Caribbean, we are neither, quote, Europeans, nor Africans, nor Asians. We declare ourselves Creole, aggregate of Caribbean, European, African, Asian, and Levantine cultural elements, united on the same soil by the yoke of history. For 3 centuries, the islands and parts of continents affected by this phenomenon proved to be real forges of new humanity, where languages, races, and religion, customs, ways of being from all over the world were brutally uprooted and transplanted in an environment to reinvent life. Our Creoleness was therefore born from this extraordinary migan, they say, this milieu, now called Creole in language, wrongly and hastily reduced, and this is their quote, to its mere linguistic aspects. The truth is, I am all these things, Haitian, Haitian American, as part of the Americas, a citizen of the Americas, a citizen of the Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean, Afro-American. Our history is a braid of histories, Bernardet, Choimoiseau, and Confiant tell us. We had a taste of all kinds of languages, all kinds of idioms, creating what Derek Walcott calls a fragmented memory. Our identities expand and shorten, The more places we go, the more it expands, the more we add to our own creolité, the creoleness of the book's title. My grandmother, who never left her island, my grandmother never left her island, but she was already more than bicultural. She had, as many of us, to quote Derek Walcott, the Antillean geography carved on her flesh. Quote, "It is there in the Antillean geography, in the vegetation itself," Walcott tells us. "The sea sighs with the drowned from the middle passage. The butchery of the Aborigines, Caribs and Arawak and Taino bleed in the scarlet of the Immortelle, and even the actions of the surf on sand cannot erase the African memory." In Haiti, people like me are called diaspora, meaning we're a member of the diaspora, one who lives elsewhere but still belongs to the land and to the people. Those of us who live outside of the country are part of the diaspora. People like me in the Haitian diaspora can belong to what is called the 10th department. Haiti has 9 official geographic departments, physical entities, actual places. The 10th department is of Haiti all over the world, of the diaspora, of people living elsewhere. It is not concrete land, it is not a specific state or place, but an idea and an ideal to which we can belong, where we can still be outside and still be part of the country. When you think about it, that's an enormous form of inclusiveness. For those of us who live outside of the country, whatever country of the world we're in, I'm often told by people who know Haiti that we of the Haitian diaspora maintain one of the strongest umbilical cords to the homeland that they have ever seen. People who live in the United States for 25 years or more sometimes go back and still want to return to Haiti and run for office. I was once at the Haitian consulate in Manhattan with my mother when a man in his 60s walked in with his U.S. passport held high above his head. He marched up to the secretary at the front desk and denounced his American citizenship so that he could run for parliament in Haiti. My mother, who has maintained her Haitian citizenship after being here more than 20 years, always says, "Well, if I can't go back to Haiti, I might as well have my passport with the palm tree and the flag on it. At least I can look at it once in a while." The man at the embassy, as the conversation progressed regarding his citizenship, repeated an image of one of René Despeste, one of our greatest living novelists and poets, an image of nostalgia, like a green-eyed stranger who wakes up in his bed every morning. When I became a writer and started having debates with the characters in the stories I was writing, the characters would often have readjustment issues that touched on bicultural life. The upside of a bicultural life, they would tell me, is that you are exposed to 2 or many realities. You have a broadening of experiences as one shadows the other. You have plantains with your Thanksgiving dinner, for one thing. The proverbs of your language peek through the veil of the English you speak. You see the world with 2 eyes that do not always look in the same direction. The downside, they would tell me, is the struggles between many worlds, different values, different means of survival. The characters in my stories often also struggle with their biculturalism. They walk the tightrope between dual identity and no identity. Does one place cancel the other one out? Can they both coexist? Can we be part of the melting pot too? What do we say when we're asked about how we call ourselves? In the building where I used to live in the spring of 1981, after just moving from Haiti to the United States, we were all desperately trying to maintain a sense of Haiti while in the United States. The building had a very large population of Haitian families because we would draw one another in. If there was a vacant apartment, one person would tell the other and the other person would tell another still, until we had created this little haven of Haiti in the middle of Brooklyn. On holidays, the families in the building would exchange dinners and plates. Babysitting favors were taken for granted. If anyone was home, you could leave your children with them for a while. And some people even left adolescent children who were not trusted to stay in the house when their parents told them to. If a child was seen misbehaving on the street, any of the people in the building were allowed to scold them, and the minors would listen, knowing the links and ties among the families, knowing how much the adults trusted one another. When I was teased at school, I would dream of that building, and I would run home to it every day as though it were a leap into the past, a leap into the familiar, a leap into loving arms which understood me and knew how I functioned. The elders of that building were all our elders, and they had the most vivid memories of anyone there. They knew places in Haiti where even the new arrivals among us didn't know, and they were respected for that. When they closed their eyes, they saw the past, deep into the past like a well. All we saw, the people my age, was a future where we hoped one day we would fit in, where we hoped one day we would belong. I remember there was an old lady in my building who would always say, "It's only my body that's here in America, but I'm going to make the most of it." This was like a mantra for her. She came to terms with this, that all your emotions don't have to fight one another, that it's okay to be many things at once, natural to have belonged to many different places at the same time, to be happy and sad too. No place belongs to any of us in a permanent way anyway, as many of the Native Americans of this land and other lands believed. We were all temporary citizens of different worlds. This old lady was like an uncle I had who always believed that we would all be thrown out of Brooklyn in the United States one of these days and would have to be ready for it. She was like a friend of mine from Trinidad who, except when she's in the house in Trinidad where she was born, calls every other place this man's land. Not home, not here, not there, but this man's land. The old woman in my building, if something was happening on a special day and I couldn't be there, she would say, "Ma pou l'ombre là," which means, "I'll see your shadow there." She made me feel like I could be present with her somewhere, even if my body wasn't there. Last night when I spoke to an uncle in Haiti whose birthday is on Christmas, I told him I'm so sorry I can't come, as I would like to for his birthday or the elections, and he tells me he will look for my shadow there. This reassures me that my shadow is in places that I can't be, and when I'm there, I take its place. My home, in the traditional sense, is now not just one concrete place, but many, many places. My adoption and migrating here makes me even more suited to take off and live elsewhere, if that is what I need to do. We all define our diasporas, our nostalgia personally. It is not one or two places, uni or biculturalism, but the mix, the café au lait which we make of it. In Birth Eye's Memory, my first novel, one of the parts I found the most pleasure in writing was a young woman defining her idea of the world she belongs to. Like our citizens of the 10th Department or the diaspora, it was not a place that she had a map to. It was a wider territory, wider than the limits made by the map of an island or the skyscrapers of a landscape. It was even beyond the illimitable sea and what remembers. It was her body, herself. It was a place where women live near trees that, blowing in the wind, sound like music. It was fluttering lanterns in the hillside, fireflies in the night the way she remembered them, faces that loom over you, a place where nightmares are passed on through generations like heirlooms, where women return like cardinal birds to look at their own faces and bodies of water, a place where breath, eyes, and memory are one. A place made of all those things that you've learned and learned to become. A place where the sea remembers everything and it remembers you. Even those who have gone far away to have a taste of other things, if only to return over and over again. Some of us in our dreams, some of us in person, some of us in fiction, some of us in memory, and fragmented or whole memory, where we see a shadow and we wonder who it is who blesses us with their presence this day, who blesses us with their love this day. The visitors who come bring with them a whole package, a jackut full of memories. Sometimes embracing and sometimes resenting the new culture all at once. while still grateful for the presence of shadows, for the gift of griots, and the love of memories, and of times like this, to share them. Thank you very much.